Yo, what's up, YouTube? It's J Dean, Dean of Music, and I'm back with another video. And when people talk about the G-Unit run outside of the 50 Cent albums, they always bring up Lloyd Banks' Hunger for More, and then they bring up The Game's documentary as being the classic albums that was outside of the 50 Cent solo albums. But today, I'm here to talk about the underrated gem that was released under the G-Unit Records emblem, Young Buck, straight out of Cashville. Feeling godly when I walk through the building. I got it all from the confidence escaping my feeling. It's time to ball. Now this album right here, straight heat, man. Straight heat. I think it's only maybe like 2 or 3 songs on here that I don't like, but everything else is crazy. So I just want to go through the album, give you my thoughts and opinions on every track, because I feel like it's a very underrated album. It didn't sell as much as the documentary, and it didn't sell as much as the Hunger for More, but I feel like, to me, it's better than those 2 albums, in my opinion. That's a hot take, but I feel like Straight Outta Cashville was a more put-together album than the documentary, and a better put-together album than Hunger for More. Hunger for More had more of that commercial vibe to it, and the documentary was kind of like a mix between the East Coast vibe and the West Coast vibe. But this mix that Buck had with street sounds of the East Coast, and then his sound bringing into the South with some of these songs, is a perfect blend to me. His flow was flawless on every song. It wasn't no stumbles or anything. The songwriting on the albums was tremendous. The beat production on this album was great as well. And let me talk about the beat production for G-Unit. G-Unit didn't have like in-house producers like Rockefeller had, where Rockefeller had Just Blaze, or they had Bink, or they had Kanye. They didn't have that. Back then, A&Rs used to get beat CDs for people and for artists, and the artist would sit there and listen to whatever beats was on the beat CD, or if a producer came to the studio and gave them a beat CD, they would listen to the beat CD, and then they would write to the beats, whatever beats that they liked on that CD, then they would record them, and then, you know, the producer would come back to track the song out. And tracking the song out is getting every stem. What's a stem? That's every single instrument that was used in the beat. That's how it was back in the day. It wasn't no sending beats to somebody like through the internet or through email. It was beat CDs. And I remember watching this video of Banks and Buck, and well, G-Unit was in the studio overseas. They was on a tour, and Buck was listening to some beat that was on his CD player. He had the headphones on, and he was writing to that beat while Banks was recording. I think it was I'm So High, and Buck was writing a song. I don't know what song that was for this album, but that's how it was back in the day when you got beats. But this album was released August 24th, 2004, which is the peak of G-Unit's era, which was G-Unit's era was at its peak really 2002, 2005. That was the peak. That was the height. And Buck, to me, pulled out a classic album. I don't throw around the word classic a lot. I feel like a lot of people don't have classics, but this first Buck album, man, let's talk about it. The first song, right? I'm gonna put this right here. The first song, right? I'm a Soldier. This is how you start an album off, with a lot of energy, and you got 50 Cent doing the chorus. And this song is produced by, it says Dre and Vital. I don't know who Dre, Vital, and Felony are. You know what I'm saying? I don't know who that is, but I'm a Soldier featuring 50 Cent. 50's on the chorus. I'm a soldier, I done told ya, don't make me fuck you up. So it starts off with that usual G-Unit aggression. And what I really liked about this album, that it was a lot of more like street songs than Banks' Hunger for More. Banks might have had the bigger sales, because I think Banks went gold the first week with Hunger for More, but Banks had the bigger songs with I'm So Fly and On Fire and Karma, but Buck had them street records. And there's really like no big radio song on this album like On Fire or Karma. It's just great records on here. And then you got Do It Like Me, which is produced by Chad Beat and Shy Money XL. which is a fire song too. It's not one of my favorites on the album, but it's still I would rate that song like an 8 out of 10. But I'm a Soldier is like a 9.5 out of 10. 50 doing a great chorus as he normally does, but not really nowadays. But back in his prime, 50 was like one of the kings of choruses. And then you had Buck with strong rapping. That song was just made to be fire. And then you got Let Me In. And this is the song that I remember hearing a lot as a kid. Because when this album came out, I was 7 years old. Yeah, I was 7 years old. And I would say when I was 7, I don't really remember hearing a lot of Hunger for More album cuts. I remember the singles being everywhere, but I don't really remember hearing like the album cuts outside, because back in the day you had to be outside if you was a kid, and even as an adult, because there wasn't that much to do in the house. But being outside, you would hear, if an album was hot, you heard the album. Everywhere you turn, cars pulling down the street playing the album. And I remember hearing a lot of the Straight Outta Cashville. I remember hearing a lot of those, and it seemed like my family was even playing Straight Outta Cashville more than they were playing The Hunger for More. But Let Me In, I still, even though this is a single off an album, I still listen to this song a lot. I know you're gonna let me in with this 9. And if you seen my video on 50 Cent it was 50 Cent the Massacre, but I said in that video, it's certain songs that I seen the video so much, when I listen to the song, I can see the video. And Let Me In is one of those. Let Me In was heavy rotation on 106 & Park, heavy rotation on MTV Jams, even Rhapsody. Let Me In is a fire single. I think that was the first single, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Let Me In was the first single. So already fire song. And then you got Look at Me Now, which is personally one of my favorite songs on the album, because it's more heartfelt, it's more down to earth. It isn't hype like the first 3 songs on the album, I'm a Soldier, Do It Like Me, and Let Me In. He slows the tempo down a little bit and does a song like Look at Me Now, which is more introspective. It lets you know more about Buck's life and what he went through as a child and what he went through as a young adult / teenager. It's a great record. It's a very relatable record to a lot of people. So I love that record. And that I didn't get to say this, but Let Me In was produced by Nidos, and Look at Me Now was produced by Mr. Porter. And then after you got Look at Me Now, so that's 4 songs in a row, straight heat. And then after Look at Me Now, you got Welcome to the South. I'm not the biggest fan of this record. I like the beat. I like Buck's verse. The chorus is cool, but I'm not a big fan of this record. This is one of the songs on the album that I don't like. And this song was produced by Red Spider. And this is where Buck album was kind of being different than the albums that was released before on G-Unit, because 50 only features 50 had on Get Rich or Die Trying was within the Shady Aftermath umbrella. That's why Eminem's on the album. Well, Dr. Dre, I think makes an appearance on Heat, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if Dr. Dre's voice is on Get Rich or Die Trying. Let me know in the comments. I think he's on Heat. I think he is. But 50 would just have features that was under the Shady Aftermath umbrella. So you would get features from Eminem, you would get a word or two from Dre, and then Snoop Dogg was tied to Dr. Dre. Not tied to, but you know, Dre and Snoop are synonymous with each other. And then that's all you would get. And then that went on for Get Rich or Die Trying. And then the only feature that was on Beg for Mercy was a singing feature, and that was, Nate Dogg was on Get Rich or Die Trying too, but come on. Nate Dogg is synonymous with Dre. Nate Dogg is synonymous with Snoop Dogg. It still falls under the same umbrella. But on Beg for Mercy, the only feature was an R&B feature, and that was Joe. There really was no rapping features outside of that Shady Aftermath umbrella. And even on Hunger for More, the rapping features that's on there are part of G-Unit and Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg was on I Get High. But on Buck's album, that's a completely different story, because on Welcome to the South, he got Lil Flip and David Banner on the same song. I would have loved for David Banner to produce Welcome to the South, My personal opinion, I think he probably could have had a bigger record with that one. But I don't really like Welcome to the South. I'm not a big personal fan of Lil Flip or David Banner rapping wise, but I love David Banner's beats. And that could just be a coastal thing because I'm from the East Coast. But I don't really like that song that much. Now, Prices on My Head now. These niggas want me dead. Put prices on my head. One of them, that's it's a couple songs on here that's like a 10 out of 10. This one right here is a 10 out of 10. And this song is featured Lloyd Banks and D-Tay. D-Tay is on the chorus. He's the one that do the background vocals after Buck say, put prices on my head cause I cock my shit. That's the nigga. That's D-Tay. That's saying that little part cause I cock my shit. But this record is produced by Crown. And it's not that many times where Banks doesn't have the best verse on the record. But this one right here, that last verse by Buck, lyrically it isn't better than Banks' verse. But sometimes aggression and tonality gives you a better verse than somebody that has a better like pocket and lyrical scheme. Because Buck started off saying niggas get out the pen and think it's good and get it packed and come right back to the same hood, thinking these young niggas gonna let them post up and get it. Ain't been home but 6 months and got his wig split it. Committed to the block, fuck these streets, fuck the cops, fuck these bitches, fuck your chain, fuck your car and fuck your watch. Riding I die for mine, highs and I pop the 9, swerving over these white lines, ducking from the one time thug and I know I can spit that whole verse from the heart. That's probably my favorite verse on the entire album. That third verse on Prices on My Head, probably my favorite Buck verse. It's phenomenal, man. Buck was rapping his ass off on this album, but that's a 10 out of 10. So far we 6 songs in, and I don't like one song. But from Prices to My Head, it's like 7 songs in a row that's straight gas, nigga. It's like 7 songs in a row that's straight gas. And then we go on to the next song, Prices on My Head was produced by Crown. I have no idea who that is. But next song, Bonafide Hustler. 50 Cent is on the chorus again. 50 Cent does a great chorus. I'm a bona fide hustler. Nigga, get out of line, I cut ya. Nigga, I'm about my paper is fuck ya. If you... Come on, man. This song is produced by Diverse and co-produced by Classic. I have no idea who those people are. And this is what I'm saying. G-Unit at this time was getting beats from everywhere. If it wasn't like... Because remember, the G-Unit label wasn't under Shady and it wasn't under Aftermath. So Eminem and Dr. Dre had nothing to do with Hunger for More. Even though Eminem is on Hunger for More, on Warrior Part 2. I don't think Dre did any production. Dre might have did production on Hunger for More. I don't know. I don't think so. But Aftermath and Shady had no ties to G-Unit at all. So you don't hear Eminem's and Dre production on Buck album whatsoever. They might have did Banks' album because Banks was the more lyrical artist. But these people that produce some of these beats, I don't know who the hell they are. They was getting beat CDs from some people, except for Needles. I think Needles produced some songs for 50 Cent as well. But I don't know who Diverse and Classic is. But the beat is fire. Bonafide Hustler is fire. 50 Cent got a great chorus and a great verse. And then you got Tony Yayo. I think Tony Yayo got out of jail and did the Bonafide Hustler verse. And he did the Ain't No Click verse. He had wrote those in jail, and then when he got out of jail, he recorded those verses, if I'm not mistaken. I saw a documentary on it. But Bonafide Hustler with 50 Cent, Tony Yayo, that's another 10 out of 10 song. Even Tony Yayo says on the song, he says, I'm a hustler, nigga, I'll sell you a dream. Just like Jay-Z said, I'll sell water to a well. He just did another flip on it. But then you got Shorty Wanna Ride. And I think this was the bigger single out of the 2 singles that was released for this album. But Let Me In and Shorty Wanna Ride, if you listen to the lyrics and you listen to the choruses, they're not radio records. But Shorty Wanna Ride, I think, was bigger than Let Me In. I remember Shorty Wanna Ride video very well. And it's just straight Buck on this record. And this beat is fire. And guess who produced this beat? Lil Jon produced Shorty Wanna Ride. Lil Jon was on fire at this time, making beats for a whole bunch of people at this time, because he was doing crunk music with the East Siders, and I think Lil Jon was making beats for a bunch of people from the South, and that's what I liked about Buck. Buck went and got even some producers from the South to make beats on this album, because Buck is from Nashville, Tennessee, or how he calls it, Cashville, Tennessee. But Shorty Wanna Ride was the second single off of Straight Outta Cashville, and this song is fire as well. The beat is fire. Buck's flow is on point on this song as well. So another fire song. Keep count on how many songs I say are fire. And then you got Bang Bang, which is produced by Needles. Needles got some fire beats on here. This might be my favorite beat on the album. And this is when the sample is from that Kill Bill. It's from the Kill Bill movie, where you're like, bang, bang, I shot you down, bang, bang, you hit the ground. And it seemed like either the producer or Buck watched Kill Bill, because the Kill Bill came out not too long before this album had came out. It's like they heard that part, either Needles or Young Buck, and was like, hey, I need that in the beat. It probably was a producer, but he sampled that. And it probably seemed like at that time, like the movie came out and then this album came out right after, so it was like, damn, you know what I mean? But Bang Bang, fire. Buck doesn't even do a chorus on here. Well, he does a chorus on here. He's like, Lord, forgive me, now they trying to kill me. Somebody out there want to kill me. It's a quick little, but it's just that sample, man. Bang, bang, I shot you down. Bang, bang, you hit the ground. Now, I got a funny story, right? This song I remember when I was a kid. I remember people playing this song a lot when I was a kid. I was 7 years old when this song came out. And at the end of the song, Buck says, he said, when the street lights come out, that's when all the real niggas come out. Bitch niggas stay in the house. And I was 7 years old, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, damn, I must be a bitch nigga, because I gotta be in the house when the street lights come on, right? I had responsible parents, and I was a kid. I just thought stupid. So when I heard that, I was like, damn, am I a bitch nigga, because I gotta go in the house when the street lights come on? But another fire record. That's another 10 out of 10 record. I actually recommend that y'all listen to that song. If you've never heard Bang Bang by Young Buck, please do. It's an amazing record. And then you got Thou Shall, which is produced by Media Mafia. I don't know who that. I don't know who that is either. But that, I remember being in love with Thou Shall. Now, I went back and re-listened to this album when I was like 17, 18 years old. And that song stuck out to me like really the most. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, but rub me the wrong way, nigga, and I will. Buck did choruses on this album that were fire as well. So I don't know if they picked that up on 50 and being able to be like, okay, I need a good chorus for a song, because Banks was doing good choruses on Hunger for More as well. But Buck was doing great choruses on this album. Thou Shall was one of those. And it's the sample on that. I don't even know what the sample is saying, but he did what some people would do, where the sample sounds like it's saying something, but you say something on top of the sample, so it manipulates the ear to think that's exactly what the sample is saying. Cause it's like, honey, kill us all, and Buck, you know, he said, you gonna have to kill us all. Now let me say this, right? Straight Outta Cashville isn't a concept record. It isn't introspective. It's just great music. Sometimes great music doesn't have to be this deep introspective shit. It's great when it is, and it makes you think. But at this time, man, it was a lot of gangster shit going on. It's 2004, but it still was a great album. Thou Shall, another. Well, I get at a 9 out of 10. Then you got Black Gloves. Black gloves, black mask, black suit, black pants, blue steel, blue vest. He did. You next. Now, one of my favorite. Well, Black Gloves is produced by Doug Wilson and Sean Kane. I don't know who the people are too. This could be all ignorance. I just don't know who those people are. Now, in this song, Black Gloves, Buck has one of my favorite lines. It says he says this about the Ja Rule beef. He said, I don't even care how I started. It's fuck me and fuck you. Cause that's some real shit. Cause you saying fuck me. He's like, you saying fuck me, then it's fuck you. I don't even care how this shit started. I always love that Buck line on that song Black Gloves. And then you got the next song, which has a story behind it, which is Stomp. Now, Stomp is fire too, right? I just named you 8 songs in a row that were straight gas, nigga. Prices on My Head, that's one. Bonafide Hustler, Shorty Wanna Ride, Bang Bang, Thou Shall, Black Gloves, Stomp. That's 7 songs in a row on this album that were straight gas. Come on, man. Buck was wilding on this album. But this song, Stomp, has a story to it, right? Stomp, believe it or not, comes from another down south rapper, DJ Paul, Juicy J. So Buck was tapping in to those down south connections that he had at the time, because he's from the South, right? Technically. And the song features The Game and Ludacris. And you can say whatever you want about Game and how you feel about him personally for his antics and everything that he does, but one thing you can't say is that nigga can't rap. That nigga is that Game is nice. You can't take that away from him. Game is nice, and Game has been nice for a long time, right? And I'm still, as a G-Unit fan, right? I'm very upset that The Game and 50 and Buck, everybody was beefing with each other, because they had a super group. You had 50 and Banks, that was New York, right? The two big artists, that was the East Coast. And then you had Buck, that had the South region. And then you had Game, that was the West Coast. That was a super group, man. But egos and shit get involved, and 50 want to release audio of somebody confiding to him and crying on a phone call. But anyway, Stomp has a story to it, right? Like I said before, it features The Game and it features Ludacris. The Game was originally not on this record. Who was originally on this record was T.I. Yep, T.I. was on this record. You can find it on YouTube. I've heard his verse plenty of times. But in T.I. verse, he's taking shots at Ludacris. And I think the story is T.I. was originally on the record, and then when they asked Luda to get on the record, he heard T.I.'s verse and was like, oh, this nigga dissing? I'm gonna say something back to him. And then Ludacris did his verse, which Ludacris has shots at T.I. on his verse. I don't know why they took, I can't lie and say I know the reason why they took T.I. off the record and decided to put Game in that slot. But everybody knows the infamous endings of Luda's verse, where he says, first of all, Luda says on this song, maintaining my fish tank in your house costs the same. Crazy line. And then he also says, don't be mad because you worth a couple hundred bands and I'm worth millions, which is a flip on T.I.'s Rubber Band Man, where he says, I'm the Rubber Band Man, wild as the Taliban, 9 in my other, 5 in my other, who it is, where he says, worth a couple $100 grand, still causing trouble, man. That's a flip on that. And then Ludacris also does a flip on T.I.'s name, because T.I. had this song on Trap Music that was called T.I., or was it on I'm Serious? One of those albums. He had a song called T.I. versus T.I.P. This is before the album. T.I. already had a song that was called T.I. versus T.I.P. And Luda says, in the verse, he says, so please stay off the T.I.P. of my dick, which is a straight name flip on T.I.'s name. So don't ever say that Luda ain't got bars, because Luda was barking at T.I. I don't know off the top of my head exactly what T.I. said, but T.I. was originally on Stump. T.I. and Luda were trading bars on each other on the record Stump. So that's the story. And they took T.I. off and put Game on the second verse, because Game was the newcomer at G-Unit, needed some exposure. So they put Game on Stump. But T.I. and Luda was originally on Stump. Game was not on Stump. That's the story. And Stump is a fire record, and I remember Stump, because this was that era where they would shoot a video for one song, and it would only be like the first 2 verses, and then it would cut to another like part of the video, but it would be another song. People was doing this back in the day all the time, because when you would buy a single, it would have an A side and a B side, and the B side was either normally the next single or an album cut. So that's just a little 2000s lore if you don't remember. And they would shoot videos. They would shoot videos where it would be the main single, and then it would be the album cut that came with it. And then Stomp was the second part of the Shorty Wanna Ride video. They was doing this back in the day, and it was a great way to promote. It was a great way to promote the album and to promote the single, because it was like, okay, this how the album was gonna sound. And you know, it was a great way to just promote two songs. It was very great marketing back in the day, where things were bigger budgets, and you know, you had to find different ways to market. But Stomp, another fire record. And then you got Taking Hits, also produced by DJ Paul and Juicy J. And this time you actually get a verse from D-Tay. And this song is cool to me. It isn't as gas as like the 7 songs before it, but you know, it's a cool song. And then you got Walk With Me. I actually really like this beat. I like the chorus that Buck put on here. Of course, Buck rapping was great at this time. And this song is produced by Dre and Vital. And that's the end of the album. It's only 14 songs on this album, and I like an album that's tight and concise. I don't like albums that's like 25 songs. Back in the day, you'll buy a CD that was like 23, 24 songs, and it'd be like 5 or 6 skits on there. There's no skits on this album. It's just straight music. And out of the 14 songs, I really only don't like one song, but I'm not bigger fans of like the last 2 records. So that's 11 out of 14 songs. Really, 13 out of 14 songs. That's a classic in my opinion. That's a classic with my opinion. So Buck got one of them albums that's a classic. I feel like, let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with me. Buck got one of those. I feel like it's very underrated out of that G-Unit catalog, because it didn't have the bigger sales of Hunger for More or the big sales of the documentary. I believe it still went platinum, but it didn't sell like 4 million like Banks did, or like 5 or 6 million that Game did. But it still was a great album, a tight, concise album. The production was on point. Buck's rapping was on point. And it was just all together a great album. It aged very well. This is the album that I listen to this album more than I listen to Hunger for More and Documentary, in my opinion. So let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Do you like Straight Outta Cashville by Young Buck, or do you not like it? Let me know in the comments. But it's been J Dean, Dean of Music. See you next video.